Could you imagine making millions of dollars a year, playing a sport that you love, living out your childhood dream, and then continuing to make millions of dollars a year in retirement? Well, that is exactly the case for these former NHL players we're going to take a look at today who are still getting paid by their former teams, whether it's from buyouts or a player being forced to retire prior to their contract expiring and then being placed on the long-term injured reserve. The first player on the list, we have three-time Stanley Cup champion defenseman Brent Seabrook, who, although everybody thinks of him as a lifelong member of the Blackhawks, is technically currently a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But before we talk about why and how that took place, let's talk about why Brent Seabrook is still getting paid. In the summer of 2016, he would sign an 8-year, $55 million extension with the Chicago Blackhawks, a deal that would carry an annual cap hit of $6.875 million through the 2023-24 season. However, Seabrook would play his final game in 2019, and the reasons he was forced to retire were lingering injuries to both of his hips and his right shoulder. Seabrook has been on the long-term injured reserve ever since, and on July 27th of 2021, in a move by the Lightning to free up some cap space, because of course players on LTIR, their cap hit doesn't actually count against the cap, the Bolts would acquire Seabrook's contract in exchange for Tyler Johnson and a 2023 second-round pick. And like I just mentioned, although Seabrook's cap hit does not count against the cap, the Tampa Bay Lightning still have to pay his salary, which this season was a total of $5 million, and he'll make another $4.5 million next season before his contract officially expires. Next up on the list, we have former Red Wing Justin Abdelkader, who was definitely a key contributor for the team for a while. However, more so as a complimentary player, his numbers were definitely propped up by playing on a line with Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk during his best two offensive seasons, and after scoring 19 goals, which was the second highest goal total of his career in 2015-16, Ken Holland would sign Justin Abdelkader to a 7-year, $29.75 million contract extension, a deal that would carry an annual cap hit of $4.25 million through 2022-23, and it didn't take long at all for this extension to look absolutely brutal for the Red Wings, as Justin Abdelkader would score just 26 combined goals throughout the next 4 seasons after signing this extension, including 0 goals in 49 games in 2019-20, which would turn out to be his final year with the Wings, and likely his final year in the NHL. On October 6th of 2020, Red Wings' new general manager Steve Yzerman would buy out the remaining years of this deal, which, for those of you who don't know, a buyout basically just stretches out the remainder of the deal and makes the annual cap hit much smaller, but it winds up being the same amount of money, just stretched out over a longer period of time. And although Abdelkader hasn't played a game for the Red Wings since 2019-2020, he has continued to make a little over $1 million a year and will continue to do so until the conclusion of the 2025-26 season. Now, Justin Abdelkader technically is an exception for this video because he has yet to officially retire. Since being bought out by the Wings, he has appeared in a few seasons professionally over in Switzerland. He's played 16 games this year where he has just 1 assist, and I feel like at this point it's very safe to say Justin Abdelkader will likely never play another NHL game again, so I thought I'd include him in this list. Moving on now to the next player on the list, we have Bobby Ryan, a former 2nd overall pick by the Anaheim Ducks back in 2005, and during the early years of Bobby Ryan's career, he was one of the most electric offensive players in the league. If you've never seen a Bobby Ryan highlight reel, I recommend you go and watch one. Had 4 straight 30-plus goal seasons from 2008 to 2012. Overall, a really successful career with the Ducks. On July 5th of 2013, the Ottawa Senators would acquire Bobby Ryan in a blockbuster deal, sending Jacob Silfverberg, Stefan Noesen, and a 2014 first-round pick to Anaheim. That pick wound up being Nick Ritchie, 10th overall. After a 54-point season with the Senators in 2014-15, he would sign a 7-year, $50.75 million extension with Ottawa, a deal that would carry an annual cap hit of $7.25 million through the 2021-22 season. Unfortunately for the Senators, this is an extension that would look pretty bad pretty quickly, as basically right away, with the exception of the first year of this deal, Bobby Ryan's offensive production would see a significant drop. He obviously dealt with his fair share of injuries and off-ice issues before the Senators would eventually buy out the remainder of Bobby Ryan's contract in September of 2020. Since the buyout, Bobby Ryan has raked in about $1.8 million a year and will continue to do so through next season. Following the buyout, Bobby Ryan would extend his NHL career 1 more year as he signed a 1-year deal with the Red Wings for 2020-21, where he actually produced pretty efficiently in a middle 6 role. However, he would only wind up playing 33 games as he suffered a season-ending injury, and that was the last we saw of Bobby Ryan in the NHL. Next up on the list, we have the Iron Man Keith Yandle, one of the better offensive defensemen from the past decade. A former 4th-round pick by the then Phoenix Coyotes back in 2005, Yandle would put up a total of 311 points in 558 career games with the Yotes before being dealt to the New York Rangers at the 2014 trade deadline. After his brief stint in New York, Yandle would sign a 7-year, $44.45 million deal with the Florida Panthers as a UFA, a deal that carried an annual cap hit of $6.35 million through the 2022-23 season. And Yandle had some great seasons in Florida, including a career-high 62 points in 2018-19. However, the decline was pretty rapid for Keith Yandle in the latter years of his career, and although he was still putting up solid offensive numbers, he was giving the Florida Panthers next to nothing in the defensive zone. The Panthers would decide to buy out the remainder of his contract on July 15th of 2021, and since the buyout, Keith Yandle has been bringing home a little over $1.2 million a season and will continue to do so through 2024-25. Yandle would sign a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers after the buyout, where he would eventually break the NHL record for the longest Ironman streak, which of course has since been broken by Phil Kessel. And prior to the beginning of this season, Keith Yandle would officially announce his retirement from the NHL on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, and has since became kind of an on-air personality for TNT, and I think he does a really good job in that role. Moving along now to the next player on the list, we have Kyle Turris, a former 3rd overall pick, again, by the then Phoenix Coyotes in 2007. Kyle Turris was never really able to get things going with the Coyotes, so on December 17th of 2011, he was sent to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for David Rundblad and a 2012 2nd-round pick, which wound up being goaltender Anthony Stolarz. Turris would go on to have the best seasons of his career in Ottawa, including a career-high 64 points in 82 games back in 2014-15. He would then go on to be a part of that massive 3-team deal that sent Matt Duchene to Ottawa on November 5th of 2017. After the trade, Turris produced at a really solid rate for the Predators in 2017-18, scoring 42 points in 65 games, and then in the summer of 2018, he would sign a 6-year, $36 million extension to stay in Nashville. Unfortunately for the Predators, Kyle Turris' production would fall off of a cliff immediately after signing this extension, and he only lasted 2 more years in Nashville before they decided to buy out the remainder of his deal on October 7th of 2020, a buyout that will pay Kyle Turris $2 million a year through 2027-28. Following the buyout, Kyle Turris would spend 2 seasons with the Oilers, where he only appeared in 50 games and scored just 3 goals across those 2 seasons before officially retiring from the NHL this past summer, and he has since joined a front office role with the team in the British Columbia Hockey League. And now for the final player we'll talk about in this video, one of the better undrafted players of the 2000s, defenseman Dan Girardi. Girardi was an absolute staple on the Rangers blue line for a very long time, played a physical, heavy, 2-way game, solid defensively, and was able to chip in a little bit of offense. He scored a career-high 31 points in 2011. As an undrafted player, made a fantastic career for himself. He would be rewarded in 2014, where he signed a 6-year, $33 million extension with the Rangers that carried an annual cap hit of $5.5 million through the 2019-20 season. However, Girardi's best years definitely came before this extension, as he only made it halfway through this 6-year contract before being bought out by the Rangers on June 15th of 2017. Girardi would then sign a 2-year, $6 million deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning as a UFA before officially retiring following the 2018-19 season. So that is going to wrap up this video looking back at some retired NHL players who are still getting paid by their former teams. Really enjoyed making this video. If you like this style of content and you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to drop a like. That is the best way to show your support. And lastly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.